So banking model of education is what Freire was talking about. Turn students into receptacles to be filled by the teachers, but like making deposits in a bank. The teacher deposits, students are the depositories. Students receive, memorize, and repeat. And since we receive the world as passive entities, education should make us more passive still and adjust us to our world so that we do not question it. Yeah, except for freedom, you have to question it. So not only question authority, ask them hard questions that you have an answer to see if they can give you the same answer and or a better one.
But if you're talking to Socrates, he's going to throw another question at you. He's not
Right.
going to answer your question.
That's right. We'll be just like basketball. Rebound comes off. Where are you? You going to be down in the key, or are you going to go where the basketball is going to go because you anticipated it?
So basically, freedom is, when every citizen has the freedom to be able to question. That's what.
Yes.
Well, then it's kind of, because a little bit of like, I'm going to give an example of Africa. That's why.
Okay, go for it.
A little bit of the African culture is where there's a respect for your elder.
Yes.
You know, that kind of thing. So
why?
It's
Because of wisdom.
yeah. It was just exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The more older you are, because of even also the education system of Africa was oral tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are
Right.
elder, which means you had more time to get knowledge being passed on to you by the people that were older than you.
Right.
So, but now there's this concept of if somebody is like older, or if somebody's a statesman, you can't really question him to a certain extent because it's like you're disrespecting his authority.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So I'm like.
And where that's coming from is the conflict. See, a statesman can simply be elected by electoral process, not necessarily being wise.
Yeah.
It's a structure that gives them the power. Okay? An elder is not simply an elder just because they're old, but because they've acquired knowledge, and through constant use of that knowledge, they've acquired a sense of wisdom.
Yeah.
Right? A statesman can be a statesman simply by accumulating enough votes to be a statesman. It doesn't necessarily make them wise, right? And so you feel the conflict between the two systems, which is a traditional one, you know, and then the imposed one, because even traditionally, you weren't here first term, so Chancellor Williams talks about this in the traditional African system. He says, look, even an elder who makes a bad decision, because elders can make bad decisions, when it's clearly a bad decision in the community, they make that in the context of being surrounded by other elders and, that's a bad decision, and they can tell, that was bad, right? And so they can change their mind. A statesman, wait, how are you to question me? Well, wait, I can question you because I helped elect you. Or even if I didn't elect you, I can still question, I still have the right to question your decision if it's clearly bad. But in a dictatorship, you don't get to question them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, the combination of wisdom and dialectic. For my example, I can argue with my father, which is 20 years older than me. And at the end, he's going to accept the will because he know also that he's kind of old school and having more access to information than him. So
Right. Yes. And then, do you have kids yet?
No.
Okay, so, right. Your kids will question you because you will be old school, right?
Yeah, but I think I see where the confusion is between between the traditional and the imposed. Because Africa had a system of governing people before colonialism came.
Right, it did.
And so I think the confusion came when there was a certain another way of governing people came in and trying to balance between the two.
Right.
You know.
Right. Okay? Because also, that traditional system of government came out of an educational system that basically interacted with the real world,
Yeah.
where everybody had same access to the same experience and knowledge base, which is not the case with imposed parliaments. Okay? It's not. Just like I was saying with president. Who can become president in the United States? Not just the person who gets votes, but
You have to be born.
look how many presidents were lawyers. Look how many presidents, you know, had prior elected office, et cetera, et cetera. Not just anybody who could get media attention.
It seems like what's happening is that the Western like mode of thinking is like, you know, money is the value, and not only is that spreading through the governments, through the model of government around places like Africa and, you know, South America and all that. It seems like that's what they are looking into as their model, you know, for development and the economy and all that, is like how to stimulate that money. So that's kind of what's being put on the pedestal. But like there's people in the States that are kind of like going back to a lot of the older stuff, like what you cover. A lot of the material is going back to the roots and like older cultures and civilizations. But it seems like what's happening the world over, not only, you know, like governmentally, but like on the TV, which is now everywhere, is, you know, these are the values that are tempting and what's put on the pedestal. So it seems like, as Americans, I can only speak from my perspective. I know there was a large movement of people going back to the roots and that knowledge and other ways of looking at the world. But it seems like where even the origin of that is coming from, it's like these people the governments are really trying to find ways to develop themselves in the whole Western model of thinking. So it seems to be like a dichotomy. But I'm wondering if you know of any like countries that are incorporating these views, you know, the more older views and worldview and morals into their frame of government.
Trying to. Quick answer, let's see, when did this happen? Well, we're operating outside of a time framework anyway. The Bond movie, Quantum of Solace, okay, was a fictionalized version of a real-world event in Bolivia. Okay? Except quantum is Bechtel. Okay? So what Bechtel does, they started out as American, they're a global, multinational construction firm, among other things, right? They build nuclear power plants, they build water systems, hydroelectric dams. So when I was talking about Ben Linder, you know, building a 20-foot dam across a stream, Bechtel does that across rivers. Okay? So when we talk about the so-called third world, right? And who builds infrastructure? What kind of infrastructure? The developing world. Well, what is it developing? Well, y'all need electricity. The reason you need electricity is because you can have modern conveniences. You know, like Ben Linder was saying, okay, let's make a hydroelectric dam that can power a refrigerator because y'all don't have electricity out here because you're in the middle of nowhere. So let's just create, so what do you need a refrigerator for? Well, you need a refrigerator for vaccines. You're too far from the power grid. I'm just going to help you with my knowledge that I got at university and build, you know, a dam that's big enough to power a refrigerator, little lights, maybe a cook stove or something like that. But Bechtel does that for countries. Okay? And they did that for Bolivia.
Yeah, look what they did in Iraq.
And yeah, in Iraq, et cetera, et cetera. They did that for Bolivia. But here's the problem. you invest, somebody has to pay for that. That's billions of dollars, right? So here, if it's E-Web, right, you pay an electric bill and a water bill, right? Because you can't live by the river and go gather your own water. Okay, you can't sit on a bicycle and power your house. So you go to E-Web. They put dams on the Willamette and, generate power, and they used to, burn wood for steam, et cetera, okay? Utility company. Bechtel puts in that, and then the government, having paid for it, wants its money back, right? So, here's what happened. When they brought power and water to certain rural areas, not everybody could afford to pay. So the poor people basically said, okay, well, we can't get water from the tap. You can't hook us up unless we pay, and we ain't got the money to pay. So we'll just gather the rainwater that falls because we're in a rainforest. Well, Bechtel said, no. And then sent the government to kick over people's rain barrels, and because Bechtel was arguing that the water that was falling from the sky was their water. Okay, so this is unprecedented in human history. No, this is their logic, right? No, this is our water. Wait, how does an American corporation own rain?
Same way that Monsanto owns seeds.
Well, right, okay, then it's a similar logic, right? You are now, like Monsanto, you are now hooked on our corn because now we have Roundup Ready corn, but you have to keep buying from us year after year. You can't use the natural condition of the plant because now we can't use regular non-GMO corn because the insects eat that up. So now you need our genetically modified corn, and it's just been ruled because the Supreme Court is supportive of corporations that you can't do that, right? So it's the same logic. So just like in the Bond movie, wait, we own the water rights to your country, right? Right? And even though it's a fictionalized evil corporation, that happened. So what happened in Bolivia is it led to Evo Morales, the first indigenously elected president, who said, no, tough beans, Bechtel. No, we ain't doing that. You don't own rainwater. Okay, which is kind of an extension of the Euro-American axiology. Like, how can you even own the land or sunlight? Rainwater? That's the first time that an American or any corporation said, we own a natural process, which is alien to indigenous ideas.
With full knowledge that the world is running out of water.
With full knowledge that the world is running out of water. And so, there was a piece, this is getting a little far afield, but it's related, okay? So, a certain small percentage of the planet is drinkable water, like 1 or 2%. And that's the water they're using to frack for oil. So now the United States has become less dependent on foreign oil by using drinking water to frack to get oil, which can no longer be used as drinking water. And that's, we're not even selling the oil here. We're selling the oil abroad to further, raise the CO2 level and carbon fuels and fossil fuels, et cetera, right? So fracking is basically taking people's drinking water and making less of it. So that's where, when Tim was saying, water is going to be the next sugar, the next oil, and the next commodity.
And those people are getting cancer.
Right, and people are getting cancer from the fracking because the fracking is poisoning their drinking water.
We as Americans,
in deep wells.
We have to question ourselves as consumers and where that's leading.
Yeah. So, banking model tries to control thinking and action and inhibits our creative powers. It tries to maintain submersion of consciousness. In it, we are merely spectators, not recreators. Not recreators, recreators. So banking concepts distinguishes two states. One, And the first, the educator cognizes, that is, thinks about a cognizable object, an object that you can think about, and prepares a lesson. During the second, he expounds to his students about that. So it becomes about what the educator thinks is important, not necessarily the student's reality. How does this relate? People, for example, have that problem with mathematics. How does this relate to my immediate world? Why do I have to learn fractions? Why is this important? So banking education tries to conceal certain facts that explain the way we exist in the world. It fails to acknowledge that we are historical beings and that what we take as a reality are particular historical conditions. So going back to the story, where and whose story? How many stories are there? Do they fit the facts? So first term, when I talk about, okay, Genesis, the one that you're reading in the King James Version of the Bible, is trying to reconcile 3 different versions of a creation story into one. 3 different ones. But if you don't know that because you haven't seen the original language, nor would you, so a lot of people can't really talk about, okay, well, how old is the King James Version of the Bible? Well, they don't know. Okay, you're taking this as fact, and you're taking this as the world is, started in 4004 BC. And like I said before, I had offended somebody who said, oh, you made fun of my religion. Like, how did I do that? I said, Africans don't believe the world is started in 4000 BC. They don't. Sorry. They don't. Pyramids are older than that, yo. It's kind of obvious. But this is an American. Oh, well, you're belittling my faith. No, this is a white guy interpreting our book and saying that the world is started in 4000 BC. We don't believe that. Sorry, and it's our book. Oh, how's it your book? Stop. Okay, you don't know about Adam's first wife. You don't know about the twins and the 5 kids. You don't know about
how many of these people do you actually convince? I mean, how can you? Not very many, probably, because it's hard to change people's minds.
Well, it's hard to change people's mind, but just saying as an article of faith, and this is in the context of, look, a construct I created called, I'm not the only one that has it, but calls it this, but African-centered reality therapy, which is, look, you don't have to believe what I believe. You don't. I don't have to believe what you believe, but I do have to understand that you believe it and why. And that if you're going to change your thought, you have to change it into something that you're going to be comfortable and have to live with.
Convinced.
Right. And it has to work for you. So, mythicizing reality. So, which historical conditions are you going to believe in? So, when it talks about populist, charismatic leaders, liberating education does not mean the oppressed coming to feel that they themselves are active and effective by identifying with charismatic leaders. Charismatic leader, just somebody that is attractive, that people like the way they speak, that, oh, I want to be like them. Okay? If they are charismatic, that is because they resonate with the same wisdom in you. That's why you recognize it. Okay? Charisma is nice, but you also have to understand that it's not just in that person, it's also in you. That's why you're moved by it. Develop it in yourself. Not that you want to be a charismatic leader. Or not that being charismatic leader is a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing if it leads to oppressing people, right? So these leaders can't bring about their liberation for them. That is, there is a liberating charismatic leaders do not necessarily of themselves free people. People have to free themselves. And a real leader tells you that and teaches you how to do that. Malcolm was a good example of that. So teachers and students are simultaneously both teachers and learners. They learn from each other and help each other learn. Teachers and students, leadership and people, are both subjects in the task of unveiling that reality, but in the task of recreating that knowledge through common reflection and action. They become its permanent recreators. This is committed involvement, not pseudo-participation. So talking about an educational process where everybody's knowledge and experience is validated and developed and modified so that everybody could be capable of teaching the lesson eventually. Students discover that reality is a process that undergoes constant transformation. This requires abandoning the deposit-making model and replacing it with posing the problems of human beings in their relationship to the world. So rather than the banking form of education, but he also when they put Freire into a dichotomy, it's basically to say that his answer to domestication versus the liberation process basically has you solving real world problems and you coming up with a solution to your real world problems. Coming from the people that experience the problem directly. Libertarian, not necessarily the political party, or co-intentional education. Two or more people having the same intention to learn towards the goal of transformation. Okay, so in that context, set up Rodney King. All right, so in the beginning when I started and talked about, okay, we're in a colonized situation here, right? What happened with Rodney King? Rodney was, look, I'm a drug counselor, so I cannot separate this analysis. He was an addict and alcoholic. Okay, so that's a level of oppression in which, as long as he's still using, he cannot free himself. Right? From the analysis of if I were going to put him in a treatment program like the Nation of Islam, from their point of view, Rodney King's addiction is basically a symptom of his continued experience of racism. Whatever, when I saw him in those Dr. Drew, rehab with Dr. Drew things, yeah, he's experiencing racism. Now, definitely, he probably experienced racism before he had the stuffing beat out of him on camera. But definitely, that by itself was a traumatic experience enough to continue to drive an addiction. Definitely, right? But he won't necessarily see that. While being under the influence, he won't see that. So, a liberative discourse would say, okay, we need to get you clean and sober. And if the Nation of Islam were doing the work, you need to be clean and sober, and you need to see yourself in a historical context. Like, why are there so many liquor stores in your neighborhood? What's the solution to that? How are these conditions maintained? That's the problem-posing form of education. Because the banking form of education doesn't even ask those questions. They basically make it an individual problem. Oh, you're screwed up. You're just another black drunk. Criminal. Can't we all get along? So, the LA Rebellion. There's a reason why it's called the Rebellion. So, this kind of thing, Rodney King beating by 4 LAPD officers surrounded by LAPD, Highway Patrol, and other officers who did not intervene, even though the beating was illegal. Did not intervene. That's a routine traffic stop, which means that this happens all over the place and then is a shared experience.
That was right at the start of when people had those the video cameras.
Yeah.
And before that, they didn't have that
Right.
at all, so.
All right? So this is an unintentional consequence of technology becoming prolific. Where now, today, as it was pointed out, you actually have to get permission from the police and let them know that you're videotaping, and they can give you permission to videotape or not. Like you're gonna stop 100 cell phone cameras. Good luck with that. We even haven't started talking about Google Glasses yet. So public outcry called for the cop's arrest and trial. Now, this had happened before, okay, with Leonard Deadweiler, a bunch of other folks, where it was ruled justifiable homicide. So, if you were planning the rebellion, and this was going to be the match, there are certain things that are going to happen that are predictable that you can count on in your planning. Right? Now, obviously, I wasn't there. I was in DC watching this go down. Okay, so South Central. Remember, we were talking about zoning for liquor stores, possess 750 liquor stores, so there is multiple levels of law breaking, but nobody's going to bring these folks to justice. The South Central Partnership, basically, in a community survey found the community felt the number one problem was too many liquor stores. It wasn't just that there were alcohol outlets, too many alcohol outlets, but that there was an illegal amount, and the alcohol outlets themselves were causing other problems with prostitution, the sex industry, and underground drug sales, et cetera, et cetera. This is at a time that the FBI said that 40, sometimes 50% of all crime is alcohol related, so therefore you reduce the amount of alcohol outlets, you reduce crime, but of course then the corollary with that is the more alcohol outlets, the greater the crime, too. So there are things that you could do to reduce crime, like more treatment, less alcohol outlets, or have them convert to a religion where alcohol is not a problem. Or there's lots of things that could be done, but weren't going to be done because it's LA. Right? And I think we talked about this already, right? After Vietnam, government encouraged business in the hood, mostly favored liquor store over other types of businesses, got vets into those businesses. Eventually the vets lost those businesses, and those businesses were taken over by other ethnic groups moving in, like Koreans, like Muslims, who, alcohol is against my religion, but I still need to make money. So here we are, right? So, if we were going to use problem solving, how do you reduce liquor stores to the legal limit when there are 3 times too many?
Start closing businesses down?
Yeah.
Raises taxes.
Raise taxes.
Legalize marijuana.
Legalize marijuana.
That's extreme.
Well, and you've all basically given solutions that are within the law. That is inside the legal box. Not criticizing you, no disrespect intended, right? But people say, okay, there are too many damn liquor stores, and y'all broke the law to have too many liquor stores. Obviously, the law is not on our side, because you betrayed our public trust. So, if we can't, because the solutions that you gave were legal ones, how soon do you think we're going to drop 3 times as many liquor stores using legal means? None. Okay, so let's burn them. Bye. Boom.
You gotta get rid of the problem by cutting off the head of the 3-headed hydra monster.
There you go. Burn, baby, burn. Popular phrase from the 65 Watts riot. Now, this is not the only idea, and I'm not the only one to even see this analysis from that point of view. I'm just noticing what happened. Okay? So, the predictable Rodney King verdict provided the match. And here's why it was predictable. Okay? How and why would you plan a rebellion? You want to change conditions. There is no legal means of changing the conditions. We rebel. Who does the planning, and how do they inform others? Or do they? If they don't, how can the planning be discovered or inferred? Now, I'm inferring this after the fact, because I haven't actually talked with the people that did this. I'm just observing it from the outside, and then I have informants that basically said, well, yes, this was planned. I talked with somebody on the other side who used to planning stuff like this for pay. He said, this is probably what happened. Okay, so why would you want to know this? Because probably going to happen again, one way or the other. So who's planning to what ends? So Rodney King verdict is a match. Sociostructural violence. Okay? 4 cops get arrested for beating up Rodney King. If the crime is committed in a largely minority area where there will be a largely minority jury pool, which is where that was, change the venue, right? So this is our system of justice. So understand, our system of justice is not designed to produce justice. Any lawyer will tell you this. It's designed to reproduce fairness in procedure, so that the procedures are all the same and consistent. Rules of evidence, jury of your peers, et cetera, right? Right? So change the venue. Because it's likely the minorities are going to be biased against the police because they're basically having the same common experience. Simi Valley. Largely white conservative suburb. Jury was mostly white with a light-skinned Hispanic on the jury. And it acquitted the 4 officers of doing anything wrong. Well, that was predictable. No crime was done in their eyes. So when they did get convicted, they got convicted federally of violating Mr. King's civil rights. But an educated guess. So goal of a rebellion. Draw attention to conditions in South Central. Target liquor stores for destruction. Timing. As soon as the verdict is announced, use the predictable community anger to strike. Rodney King verdict as match. Resources. Field sniper teams to hold emergency responders at bay when they respond to liquor store fires. These teams themselves were taken out without mention in the media.
Were they
Now, I know gang members who noted that somebody was shooting at the firemen. Like, who does that? Who does that? Okay? You shoot at police, because the police generally shoot back. Who don't you want? Why would you not want firemen to respond to a fire? Because the fires are set. And the fires, not just liquor stores, but mostly liquor stores. And what happened with South Central is half the liquor stores were taken out in the rebellion. And liquor stores themselves were targeted specifically. And where the firemen were responding to liquor stores, because the firemen are just responding to a fire. They don't care that it's a liquor store. But who shoots at firemen? Like randomly. No, that wasn't random because of the shot selection. shot firemen, non-fatally shot them in the leg. Because even gang members said, yeah, right, they're shooting at firemen, but they didn't kill any firemen. Huh.
Somebody's getting proactive.
Right. So, this is, 92. Who can field sniper teams? There are no Black Panthers. Right? The gangs are not great shots. That's why they're not snipers. Snipers is a skill set. Who does that?
Blackwater or the government?
Well, Blackwater doesn't have a motivation to keep
Well,
black people.
Not necessarily Blackwater, but mercenary groups.
Okay, a mercenary group that's anti-alcohol? I'm not questioning you, right? But yeah, this is, Frere problem solving. Oh, how do you take out liquor stores? Well, you can't use legal means. Let's use illegal means. If we're going to do illegal means, we want the liquor stores taken out. We need to cover that with public anger because we can't just blow up the liquor stores. Because, if you're a sniper, you also have other skill sets too.
Well, there's a lot of cats out there that came back from Vietnam with special skills.
That's right. There are.
There's another easy example. The teenager in Florida who got shot. So
Trayvon? Yes.
That's an easy example. I mean, you don't have to go that deep to understand it was like profiling thing.
Right.
Because the police asked him not to engage.
Right.
And they will make him a scene of it. I mean, it's very obvious what this guy killed him on purpose.
Yeah.
Because of his color. That's really.
Yeah. Pretty clear. Oh, I'm not a racist. I mentor black kids. Well, anyway, the sniper teams themselves were taken out. There was no media attention. It wasn't even mentioned by the media. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first time you've heard this. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I learned about it because people who work with gangs talk to each other. Right? And so I knew people that knew people that knew people. So if you're listening, government, whatever. But I don't have any names. I don't even remember who told me. But the explanation fit the facts. So I actually talked with somebody who's in the military, and he said, oh, obviously it's a skill set. Obviously they're military. So just like, Tim's theory about Vietnam vets, well, a lot of them are too old to do that. But he says, look, because this person is in special ops. He says, look, there are lots of people when they're deployed and they come back where they have a skill set where, one, they're not afraid of dying. Two, they've done things like go and capture gang members and, precisely shot them and killed them and went back to base. And they just consider that a night's entertainment. Especially if, one of the gang members threatens their own. No, we're going to teach you a lesson and you just simply disappear. And we simply disappear. You see, so, my friend said, look, sniper skill sets, obviously. And these people are trained to get away, or if they are caught, to die. And it's just part of the business.
Not just Vietnam, there's Gulf War.
Yeah, right. There's lots of folks that are capable of doing that particular thing. And they would think nothing of it. Because I said, right, there's no Black Panthers. Right, so what? A rogue team? Yeah, the military would just consider them a rogue team. So again, civic-minded, current vets or active duty folks that say, okay, we're going to torch liquor stores and keep the folks at bay rather than kill them. And maybe we should have had rockets for the police, but we're not going to do that. So a few of them are taken out, right? So half the liquor stores were destroyed. Anyway, that's the result. Probably by now the liquor stores have been rebuilt. It's 20 years later, right? Because this basic infrastructure wasn't changed in terms that causes liquor store proliferation to begin with. So, rebellion soundbites. So, this isn't about Rodney King. This is about Emmett Till. You may love Martin Malcolm. The speaker is Lil Monster Cody. It is when Nightline was still being hosted by Ted Koppel. So naturally, this is big news at the time, right? So Lil Monster is walking down Normandy Avenue because the ground zero for the rebellion was Normandy and Florence. Lil Monster's walking down Normandy with Ted Koppel. Don't have a copy of the video, but I remember seeing it from DC. And Lil Monster is saying, this isn't about Rodney King, this is about Emmett Till, Eula May Love, Martin, and Malcolm. And in case, because Ted didn't elaborate, so Emmett Till, right, you know about. Eula May Love was a black woman who was behind on her gas bill. So Pacific Gas and Electric was going to shut off her gas and electric. So she shows up on her lawn in her dressing gown and robe and slippers with a little steak knife to hold the guys at bay. They call the cops. 4 cops surround her. They shoot her dead. Now this is an old woman, or older woman. A steak knife. There's 4 cops. Like, you could do a takedown of an old lady, but instead they shot her. Justifiable homicide. And Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Oh, this is about a larger issue. So Ted asks, I think this is the next one, right? I was reading in the Wall Street Journal, and Ted does a double take. Wait, this gang member reads the Wall Street Journal? Yeah, we read the Wall Street Journal. Why? Because it's about money. America is about money. Wall Street Journal is the place you read about money. Money is power. Of course we do. Who are your leaders? Well, we aren't telling you who our leaders are because you've just killed them, just like Martin and Malcolm. We have many leaders, but not the ones you think. Our leaders are not people like Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton. People who have media attention. People who are charismatic leaders. So I don't know whether, so yes, Lil Monster Cody is the brother of Monster Cody who founded the Crips. Community, is this an example of community revolution in progress, that view of the Crips, or something else? Don't know. But each one of these stories, for example, Leonard Deadweiler killed by the CHP, Eula May Love, LAPD, Stephen Biko, Fannie Lou Hamer, Arthur McDuffie from Miami-Dade, William Stevenson, Portland, are basically people that are made invisible by the mass media but are remembered in the community, therefore are part of that illegitimate knowledge base where we remember stuff and that moves our actions. So part of some of the side effects were the Reginald Denny beating, and only 1/3 of the arrestees for looting are black. The rest were a mix of white, Latino, and others. Right? So it's now not a black thing. It's, the economic conditions have spread beyond simply African Americans. And that's one of the things that, in terms of looking at the rebellion, taking out liquor stores as whoever was behind that, it's only one particular factor. So hopelessness isn't just a black thing. So also the Aquarian bookstore was destroyed in the rebellion. So that wasn't a good thing either. So I'm going to, we got 7 minutes left. They're going to give me 5 minutes and about 2 roughly. But I'm going to try and get through this. Do you want some of the Frary slides? Because that was part of a whole longer piece that I excerpt. So I can add that to this. You can read it at your leisure or get the book. But in terms of symbolic imagery and rhythm. So logic, that's the square, and sense. Squares do not happen in living systems. Circles do. So logic is a means of reasoning to an answer. The answer doesn't necessarily have to be true, doesn't necessarily have to square with what humans know and experience. Best logic models do, but they often don't. So, logic and sense. Logic doesn't always square with sense, and sense doesn't always fit within a logical system. Logic is a mentally constructed means of reasoning to an answer. So, sense, conforming to what your 5 physical senses tell you. See, touch, hear, taste, smell. It makes sense, right? Fits your own experience. Okay? Logic should square with sense, but it doesn't always. So, logic can unfold with sense. So, starting from square, logic unfolds. To get to a cube, you square the square. And you have a cube. To get a hypercube, you cube the cube. And then each one of those dimensions unfolds from the ones before it. So that in this, on the far right depiction of a 4-dimensional hypercube, in an 8-dimensional hypercube, you have a hypercube that you could depict on each side of every side that you see is square. But anyway, a human being in the middle may or may not question their reality or the things that focus their reality. They might just simply accept them, right? So, thank you. When logic doesn't square with sense, one of 2 things are happening. Check for them in this order. A limited purpose is using logic to lie. Because you can lie with logic. And in domestication, education for domestication, logic is often used to lie, to conceal reality or to deny your reality. So check for that first. The second thing, a higher purpose is causing logic to unfold in a different direction than you're used to. And this is outside of an oppressive system. You could be told, a truth could be being revealed to you that is outside of the sense of logic, but is within your capability of perceiving it. Because if our natural condition is freedom, we can evolve beyond and transform ourselves beyond systems of oppression. Yeah.
Yeah, just real quick, with language and the English language, a lot of people look at it as a very deceptive language, and I think that goes back to, can't exactly remember, but basically like words that we commonly think of have a whole different meanings that from the older version of English. So it's kind of like that with the whole deception of logic and words too, has those connotations.
Yeah, because for example, what I call the ragamuffin syndrome. Well, some people spell it ragamuffin. The dictionary defines ragamuffin as a dirty or unkempt child. Right? Actually, you hear that phrase in reggae. Yeah, ragamuffin. Reggae, ragamuffin. Yeah, okay? All right. Dirty or unkempt child. But an older form of the dictionary, ragamuffin is a demon in child form. Yeah. Now, where this comes about in terms of, okay, English not necessarily being deceptive, but having a history where words change. I'm helping Mom take down the Christmas tree, right? And so, you know, the people who raised me, we got black Santas, we got black angels, we got Kwanzaa things on the tree, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I'm helping her pack that stuff, and there's 2 angels. One's blonde hair and blue-eyed. That's marked an angel. And then there's a black one, exact same mold, but brown skin and black hair. Exact same angel from the same company, you know, made in China. Right? But the black one's called a ragamuffin. I'm going, I said, Mom, where'd you get this? Oh, Target. Okay, but why is the black angel called a ragamuffin? Yeah, she said, that's interesting. I didn't think about it. I just put it in the cart, you know, but okay, there's something to this. So I go to the dictionary and I find that ragamuffin is a demon. So wait, this black angel called a ragamuffin, like, oh, it's a demon, not actually an angel, because it has black skin. Like, only the white angel is the real one. That's like a double think. That's a racial double think. There, programming, Hallmark, Target. Is it a conspiracy? No, but it basically takes into account different systems of logic unfolding in a particular direction. Okay, now I will describe later next week what I call ragamuffin syndrome, which is when a person experiences racial self-hatred and attempts to emulate the oppressor, who still hates them even though they dress like an angel. You're still a devil because you're a brown person. We'll take this up later next week.